The conversation happened in the parking lot of Henderson's grain elevator in May of 1987. Walter Briggs had just finished unloading a truckload of seed corn. He was 49 years old, been farming the same 240 acres in southern Iowa since 1965. He ran a small operation, just him, no hired help, and he ran it with equipment that was, to put it mildly, aged. His main tractor was a 1958 Farmall 560 diesel, 29 years old in 1987. He'd bought it used in 1972 for $3,200. 15 years of daily use since then, still his primary machine. As Walter was getting into his truck to leave, Jim Henderson pulled up beside him. Jim owned the grain elevator, but he also ran the John Deere dealership on the same property. "Walt, got a minute?" "Sure, Jim." Jim got out of his truck, looked serious. "I need to talk to you about something. It's about your tractor." "The 560? "Yeah. Well, that machine is almost 30 years old. I've been watching you run it for years now, and I'm worried." "Worried about what?" "That it's going to kill you." Walter blinked. "Kill me?" "I'm serious. That tractor has no roll bar, no ROPS, no safety features at all. You're farming hills with a machine that was designed before anyone thought about operator safety. If that thing rolls on one of your slopes, you're dead. I've been farming those hills for 22 years. Never had a problem. Yet you haven't had a problem yet, but Walt, it only takes once. One miscalculation, one wet spot, one moment of inattention, and that tractor goes over. At your age, at the speed you work, you won't be able to jump clear. And that 560 doesn't have any protection. It'll crush you." Walter was quiet for a moment. "What are you suggesting?" "Trade it in. Get something modern, something with a cab, roll bars, seat belts, equipment that's designed to keep you alive if something goes wrong. And what would that cost me? I've got a used 1982 John Deere 2940 on the lot, good condition, cab, ROPS, the works. I'd give you $3,000 for the 560 on trade. You'd finance about $12,000. Payments would be around $250 a month for 5 years. So I'd go from owning my equipment free and clear to having a payment again. You'd be safer, or I'd be in debt." Jim sighed. "Walt, I'm not trying to sell you something you don't need. I'm genuinely worried. I've seen what happens when old tractors roll. I've been to the funerals. I don't want to go to yours." Walter looked at his friend. Jim wasn't a bad guy. He probably did mean well. But Walter also knew that Jim made his living selling tractors, and a farmer with paid-off equipment wasn't contributing to that living. "I appreciate the concern, Jim, but that 560 and I understand each other. It does what I need it to do, and I'm careful. I've been careful for 22 years. I'm not taking on debt for safety features I don't need. You do need them. You just don't know it yet." "Maybe, but I'm not changing my mind." Jim shook his head. "All right, but Walt, seriously, be careful. That tractor is a death trap waiting to happen. One day it's going to break down or roll over, and I don't want to be the one who has to tell your wife what happened." Walter drove home thinking about that conversation. That night at dinner, his wife Carol asked what was wrong. "Jim Henderson says my tractor is going to kill me." Carol set down her fork. "What?" Walter explained the conversation, the warnings, the trade-in offer. "Is he right?" Carol asked quietly. "Is it dangerous?" "Any tractor is dangerous if you're careless. But the 560 isn't any more dangerous than what I've been running for years. Jim's worried about the lack of modern safety features, but those features wouldn't make much difference in how I farm. But if there's a chance it could keep you alive, there's also a chance that taking on a payment would stress us financially in ways that are just as dangerous. Carol, we're doing fine. The farm is paid for. The equipment is paid for. We have no debt. I'm not going to change that because Jim thinks I need a newer tractor." Carol was quiet. "Then just promise me you'll be careful." "I'm always careful. More careful." "Okay, more careful." But Walter didn't trade in his 560, and that decision would define the next 25 years of his life. Before we go any further, I need you to understand what Walter was facing. This wasn't just about a tractor. It was about a fundamental question. Do you prioritize safety that costs money, or do you trust your own judgment and experience? If you want to know how a 1958 Farmall became the tractor that proved everyone wrong for a quarter century, hit that subscribe button. Because this story is about more than just surviving. It's about thriving with equipment everyone said would kill you. Let me tell you about that 1958 Farmall 560. Walter had bought it in 1972 from an estate sale. The original owner had maintained it well. Red paint was faded, but the engine was strong. The transmission worked. The hydraulics functioned. It was a solid machine. Over 15 years, Walter had put thousands of hours on it. He'd rebuilt the clutch once, replaced hydraulic seals twice, changed the oil religiously every 100 hours, did all his own maintenance. He knew every sound it made, every vibration, every quirk. When something wasn't right, he could hear it before it became a problem. The tractor had no cab, no roll bar, no safety features beyond a basic seat and steering wheel. It was exactly what Jim Henderson had described, a machine from an era before anyone thought much about operator safety. But Walter farmed carefully. He knew his land, knew which slopes were safe and which weren't, knew where the wet spots were, knew his limits. In 1987, after Jim's warning, Walter did make one change. He welded a roll bar onto the 560 himself. Took him 2 weekends and cost him about $80 in materials. It wasn't as sophisticated as a factory ROPS system, but it was better than nothing. Carol felt better after that. Jim Henderson saw it at the elevator and nodded approvingly. Though he still thought Walter should upgrade, Walter kept farming. The 560 kept working. 1988 came and went. The tractor ran fine, no problems. Starting to show its age, little things breaking more often, but nothing major. Walter was 52 years old. The 560 was 32. Both of them were middle-aged and still working hard. Around town, people talked. Walter's still running that old Farmall. Thing's going to die any day now. Or kill him first. Jim Henderson brought it up every few months. Walt, that offer still stands. Trade that old thing in before something happens. Walter always said the same thing. When it dies, I'll deal with it. Until then, it's working fine. By 1992, the 560 was 34 years old. Walter had owned it for 20 years. Other farmers were upgrading to tractors with GPS and air conditioning and computer systems. Walter was still running a machine that predated transistor radios. But here's what those other farmers didn't see. While they were making payments of $500 or $800 or $1,000 a month on new equipment, Walter was putting that money in the bank. He had no debt. His operating costs were minimal. When grain prices dropped or yields were bad, he could survive. The farmers with big payments couldn't always say the same. In 1995, Walter's neighbor, a guy named Tom Bradley who farmed 400 acres with modern John Deere equipment, lost his farm. Couldn't make his equipment payments after 2 bad years. Bank foreclosed. Everything sold at auction. Walter went to that auction. Watched Tom's nearly new tractors sell. Watched a man lose everything because he'd taken on debt he couldn't service during hard times. Walter drove home on his 37-year-old Farmall and felt grateful for its continued operation. Let me stop and ask you something. How many of your decisions are based on fear of what might happen versus confidence in what you know? Drop a comment, because Walter spent 25 years being warned about danger while everyone around him was facing financial danger they didn't see coming. The years kept passing. The 560 needed a major overhaul, engine rebuild, transmission work. Walter spent 3 months doing the work himself in his shop. Parts cost him $1,800. Labor cost him nothing because he did it himself. Jim Henderson heard about it. Walt, you just spent $1,800 fixing a 40-year-old tractor. You could have put that toward a new one, and I'd have a payment for 5 years. This way I spent $1,800 once and I'm done. No ongoing costs until something else breaks. Jim, something is always breaking. On new tractors too. Difference is, I can fix mine. Can your customers fix theirs, or do they have to bring them to you and pay diagnostic fees and labor rates? Jim didn't have an answer for that. By 2000, Walter was 62, thinking about retirement. The 560 was 42 years old, still running daily. People had stopped asking when he was going to upgrade. They'd started asking how he kept the thing running. Maintenance, Walter would say, regular maintenance and knowing when something's about to fail. But parts must be impossible to find. Not really. Salvage yards, online suppliers. Sometimes I fabricate what I need. You'd be surprised what you can keep running if you're willing to work at it. In 2005, Walter was 67. He'd officially retired from active farming, leasing his land to a younger farmer. But he still used the 560 around the property, mowing, moving things, odd jobs. The tractor was 47 years old. Jim Henderson was 72 and semi-retired himself. He'd sold the dealership to a larger operation out of Des Moines, but still came around the elevator sometimes. He saw Walter on the 560 one day and pulled up beside him. That thing's still running. Every day. How many hours you think you put on it? I stopped counting at 15,000. That was back in 95. Probably 20,000 by now. Jim shook his head. I was wrong about it killing you. You were wrong about a lot of things. Fair enough, but I was right about the safety issue. You're just lucky you never rolled it. It wasn't luck. It was being careful, knowing my limits, respecting what the machine could and couldn't do. Jim was quiet for a moment. You know how many of my customers from 1987 are still farming? No idea. About half. The other half either retired, sold out, or went broke. Most of the ones who went broke did it because they kept upgrading equipment they couldn't afford, chasing productivity gains that never materialized, taking on debt that buried them when things got tight. And you sold them that equipment. I did, and I made a good living doing it. But looking back, I'm not sure I helped them as much as I thought I was. You gave them what they asked for. Maybe. Or maybe I convinced them they needed things they didn't. Hard to say. They sat there in the parking lot, two old men thinking about decades of decisions. For what it's worth, Walt, I'm glad that tractor didn't kill you. Me too. By 2010, Walter was 72 and Carol was 70. They'd been married 48 years. The 560 was 52 years old. Walter still used it regularly. His son-in-law, who'd taken over farming the land, borrowed it sometimes for jobs around his own property. Thing runs better than tractors half its age, he'd say. The secret, Walter finally admitted to him, wasn't just maintenance, it was simplicity. That 560 doesn't have a computer, doesn't have sensors, doesn't have 100 things that can go wrong. It's got an engine, a transmission, hydraulics, and not much else, which means when something breaks, you can figure out what it is and fix it. Modern tractors? Good luck. You need a laptop and diagnostic software just to figure out what's wrong. Then you need a dealer technician to fix it, and you pay through the nose for both. So you're saying simpler is better? I'm saying simpler is more fixable, which over 50 years turns out to be better. In 2012, on May 15th, Walter turned 74. The 560 turned 54. They'd been together 40 years. Carol threw Walter a birthday party, invited the whole family. At the end of the night, Walter's grandson, a kid named Jake, who was 16, asked him a question. "Grandpa, why do you still use that old tractor? Couldn't you afford a new one?" "I could. Always could have." "Then why didn't you?" Walter thought about how to explain it. "Because that tractor taught me something important. It taught me that newer isn't always better, that debt isn't necessary, that if you take care of something, it'll take care of you. But isn't it dangerous, like no safety features? It can be dangerous if you're careless, but life is dangerous. Driving a car is dangerous. Working on a farm is dangerous. You can't eliminate all risk. What you can do is be smart about it. Did people tell you it was dangerous? All the time. The John Deere dealer told me it would kill me, said I was crazy for not upgrading, said one day I'd regret it. Do you regret it? Walter looked out the window at the 560 parked by the barn. Still there, still running, still working after 54 years. Not even a little bit. I recently went to visit Walter. He's 86 now. Carol passed away 3 years ago. He lives in a small house in town, though he still visits the farm regularly. And the 560? Still there, still running, 66 years old. Walter's son-in-law uses it. Jake, the grandson who asked about it years ago, uses it too. He's 28 now, farming part of the land himself. That tractor's older than my dad, Jake told me. Older than Grandpa was when he bought it, and it still works. Does Walter still drive it? Sometimes, when we let him. He'll come out to the farm and just want to sit on it. Says it reminds him of all the years they spent together. I asked Walter about Jim Henderson's warning, about the prediction that the 560 would kill him. Jim died 4 years ago, Walter said. Heart attack. He was a good man, meant well. But he was wrong about that tractor. Did he ever admit it? In 2005, yeah. We had a conversation about it. He said he'd been wrong, said I was lucky. I told him it wasn't luck. What was it then? Respect. I respected that machine, knew what it could do, knew what it couldn't do. Never pushed it beyond its limits, never put myself in situations where the lack of modern safety features would matter. Would you do it differently if you could go back? Walter thought about that for a long time. No, because the 560 didn't just not kill me. It gave me something more valuable than safety features. It gave me freedom, financial freedom, the freedom that comes from not owing anyone anything, from not having a payment hanging over your head every month. And that was worth the risk. It wasn't a risk. That's what Jim never understood. The real risk was taking on debt I didn't need. The real danger was spending money on equipment I couldn't afford. The 560 wasn't a death trap. It was a life raft. Last month, the local paper did a story about the 560. 66-year-old tractor still working daily on Iowa farm. They interviewed Jake, who's farming with it now. People ask me why I don't upgrade. Why I'm farming with a tractor that's literally twice my age. And I tell them what Grandpa told me, because it works, because it's paid for, because I can fix it myself. Because I'm not sending $800 a month to a bank for something that does the same job. What about safety? I'm careful, same as Grandpa was. I know the machine, I know the land. I don't take stupid risks. That's how you stay safe, not by having the newest equipment, by being smart. The paper asked if he'd ever consider upgrading. When this tractor finally dies, really dies beyond repair, I'll upgrade. But not to something new. I'll find another old Farmall or International. Something simple, something I can maintain, something that won't own me. Your grandfather would be proud. He is proud, because I learned what he was trying to teach. That the goal isn't to have the newest equipment. The goal is to own what you have and be able to keep working no matter what happens. So let me leave you with this. The John Deere dealer said that 1958 Farmall would kill him. Said it was a death trap. Said Walter was crazy for not upgrading. Said one day he'd regret it. Said one day it would roll over or break down at the worst possible moment, and that would be the end. 25 years later, actually now 66 years after it rolled off the assembly line, that Farmall is still running daily. Walter is 86 and healthy. Never had the accident Jim warned about. Never had the catastrophic breakdown everyone predicted. Meanwhile, the farmers who bought new equipment in 1987, Many of them are gone. Some retired. Some sold out. Some went broke, making payments they couldn't afford. But Walter farmed debt-free for 40 years, retired comfortably, passed the operation to the next generation. And that 1958 Farmall is still there, still working, still proving that sometimes the most dangerous choice is the one everyone tells you is safe. If this story changed how you think about new versus old, safety versus debt, and what real risk looks like, do 3 things. First, subscribe for more stories about equipment that outlasted all the warnings and predictions. Second, drop a comment. What old equipment are you running that everyone said would fail but hasn't? Third, share this with someone who's being pressured to upgrade when what they have is working fine. The dealer said that 1958 Farmall would kill him. 25 years later, now 66 years later, it's still running daily. The dealer is dead. The farmers who took his advice are broke or gone. But Walter and that Farmall are still here. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is listen to people who profit from your fear. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.